Nick Forrester stood at the threshold of Brooke Logan's sprawling Malibu home with his heart pounding in his ears, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows behind him and the weight of a shattering secret pressing down on his chest. He could almost feel Brooke's warm, familiar smile blooming the moment she opened the front door, if only he didn't dread that moment so fiercely. Because beneath his tailored suit and practiced calm, he carried a secret so explosive that it threatened to shatter the delicate web of trust they had been painstakingly weaving for months. Rumors had begun swirling through the corridors of Forrester Creations. Luna's true father might not be the respectable Dr. Finn, it might be him, Nick, tainted by the mistakes of a single night with Poppy. The lab report Finn had ordered, the one meant to soothe Luna's anxious longing for her genetic origins, had been misfiled, misread, or perhaps worse, had simply vanished into chaos. And if that test truly showed Nick's DNA coursing through Luna's veins, then every step he took from here on would be haunted by the shadow of a child he had never known, and a daughter who might bear the stigma of his worst choices. He replayed the moment, weeks ago at Il Giardino, when he and Poppy had found themselves alone amid flickering candlelight. Underneath the swirl of red wine and the soft strains of a string quartet, he had let his defenses slip. She had pressed him for confession of ambition, of heart, of love, but in his vulnerability he had given her more than words. And now, as whispers of paternity wound their way up to Brooke through half-truths and speculation, he realized that the one person whose opinion mattered more than any client or colleague, Brooke, whose heart he had slowly won over shared dinners and tender longings, would recoil in horror at the revelation that he might be father to Luna, a young woman whose life was already tangled in tragedy. Brooke had once welcomed troubled souls with the open arms of compassion, but would she be able to forgive a past so riddled with impulses and mistakes? Worse yet, would she ever look at him the same way again once she knew that on that fateful evening at Il Giardino he had surrendered himself, even if unwittingly, to Poppy's charms? Meanwhile, Finn, a man of science, of truth, and of unshakable calm, had sensed something amiss. The discrepancies in the lab work, the hushed side conversations between technicians, the way his once pristine results seemed to wobble like a reflection in rippling water, all of it awakened a grim curiosity in him. And when he finally confronted the lab manager, the explanation was a nightmare of bureaucracy and human error. Somewhere between the shipping manifest and the quality control checklist, Luna's vials had been switched with another patient's. A loose cap, a mislabeled tube, a hurried signature, and suddenly the DNA test that was meant to affirm Finn's quiet certainty became a gauntlet that could mark Nick's life with an indelible stain. And Finn, at first dismayed by the possible scandal it posed to Brooke's happiness, found a perverse spark of hope lighting in his heart, because if Nick truly was Luna's father, then Finn might stand to gain more than he lost. The revelation would pit him not only against a man he'd grown to respect as a rival, but also against the woman he loved, who might finally see him as the protector and provider Luna needed. Yet Finn was nothing if not honorable. He resolved to keep the discovery close to his vest until he could be certain, until he understood every nuance, and until he knew how Brooke would react to a truth of such staggering emotional force. But secrets, like spilled ink on fine linen, have a way of staining everything around them, and Nick's carefully constructed world began to unravel at a moment as mundane as a dinner reservation. One evening, he arrived at Bella Vita, the soft glow of lanterns guiding patrons through olive trees and wine barrels. Poppy, always 2 steps ahead in the game of seduction, greeted him with a conspiratorial smile and a glass of bubbly. Their conversation, ostensibly about Luna's upcoming birthday and the delicate choreography required between Finn and Brooke, soon drifted into territory far more incendiary. Names were whispered, timelines were debated, The possibility of a paternity scandal was dissected with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Meanwhile, unaware that her ex's furtive rendezvous would seal his own fate, Brooke Logan happened to enter the restaurant on her way to meet Ridge for a routine business discussion. Drawn by a flicker of distress in a waiter's eyes, she paused near Nick's table, intending only to pass by. But the words that drifted up through the night air struck her like an avalanche. It could all be his. The test was wrong. Luna deserves to know her real father. Brooke can't handle this. She froze, glass of iced tea in hand, the strings of her purse pulled taut between her fingers. The world tilted on its axis as she realized that her two greatest loves, Finn, the steadfast pillar of trust, and Nick, the man who had awakened her heart, were locked in a secret that could destroy them all. Brooke retreated into the shadows of the foyer, her mind racing through every tender moment and every promise she had exchanged with both men. She remembered the way Finn had cradled Luna's hand in his, the way he had coached her through sleepless nights, how he had become the stepfather she never asked for but desperately needed. She recalled Nick's laughter, his mischievous grin when he teased her at Forrester Creations, and the heat of his kiss the first time he dared to call her Brooke. Which of these truths was more real? Which identity of Nick Forrester would she choose to believe? The loyal friend and uncompromising artist, or the impulsive lover capable of fathering a child he never claimed? And what would become of her marriage to Finn if she revealed the truth prematurely? If she shattered his carefully managed illusion before he'd had the chance to make his own choice? In that electric moment, the line between loyalty and love, between honesty and protection, blurred into an indistinguishable haze. Brooke felt tears prick at her eyes, not for herself, but for Luna, for the fracture that might rend the bonds of family she had spent so long trying to mend. Now, as Nick paced the balcony outside Brooke's office, rehearsing an apology he did not know how to deliver, and Finn sat in his own studio surrounded by sketches and lab reports, the question hung in the air like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Would Brooke tell Finn what she overheard, exposing both men to judgment, heartbreak, and the unforgiving glare of public scandal? Or would she carry this burden alone, guarding Nick's secret in the hope that love might somehow survive the earthquake beneath its foundations? The answer lay somewhere between loyalty and betrayal, between the safety of silence and the cleansing power of truth. And as the Pacific Ocean waves crashed against the Malibu shore below, only one thing was certain. When secrets of this magnitude finally break free, there is no patching together the pieces of a heart that has been shattered. Whatever choice Brooke makes, it will reverberate through every room in the Logan and Forrester legacy, and the fallout may be more devastating than anyone dares to imagine. Brooke found Finn in his sun-drenched study, poring over blueprints for the new clinic expansion, every line and curve a testament to his meticulous care for patients and the life he'd built with Luna. Her pulse thundered in her ears, each beat a countdown to the moment she would shatter the fragile peace between them. Without a word, she closed the study door behind her, and Finn looked up, concern rippling across his features. "Brooke? What is it?" he asked, setting the papers aside. She exhaled, the confession tearing free in a single, jagged breath. "I heard Nick and Poppy at Bella Vita. They were talking about Luna, that the DNA test was wrong, that Nick might be her father." The words echoed in the room like gunshots, and Finn's brow crumpled. Time slowed as her truth cascaded over him. The swapped vials, the possibility that the daughter he'd cherished as his own might belong to the man who haunted Brooke's memories. Finn's hands trembled on the desk. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he whispered, hurt and disbelief warring in his voice. "I needed to be sure," she began, but the reproach in his eyes stopped her. "Needed to be sure?" he repeated, voice cracking. "Brooke, I trusted you. All at once her love and her guilt collided. She reached for him, but he flinched away. In that instant, the final thread that might have drawn them closer snapped. When news of Brooke's revelation reached Nick, through a terse voicemail from his attorney rather than the woman whose forgiveness he craved, he realized hope had deserted him. No longer could he flirt with her at Forrester Creations, no more stolen glances at charity galas, no half-smiles exchanged over coffee. Brooke had barricaded her heart behind walls stronger than any blueprint Finn could draft. At the office, she avoided his emails, her secretary curt and unhelpful. Nick tried everything: a sincere apology, a bouquet of lilies by her desk, a promise to accept her decision, but each gesture met only icy silence. As the weeks passed, his longing twisted into regret. The man he'd once been, the daring suitor, the impetuous lover, was gone, replaced by someone hollowed out by fear and remorse. When he walked past her office one afternoon, he saw her on the phone, her chin quivering as she spoke to Rich. In that moment he understood that whatever chance he'd had to win her back had evaporated, leaving behind a stark truth: some wounds, once cut deep enough, will never heal. Across town at the Forrester mansion, Steffi intercepted Ridge in the library, her eyes alight with a gleeful triumph that surprised even her. "Dad, did you hear?" she began, unable to contain herself. "Luna's not Finn's daughter." Ridge leaned back, startled, as Steffi recounted Brooke's confession. "I always knew Finn was too good to keep secrets," she said, a smile tugging at her lips. "But this clears the way for Nick, right?" Ridge's jaw tightened. "Don't celebrate too soon," he warned. "Brooke's willing to stand by Finn, no matter what. And Nick, he has bigger problems than a paternity rumor." Yet Steffi's relief was palpable. A vindication of her long-held skepticism about Brooke's marriage and loyalty. She imagined Luna no longer as Finn's heir, but as the Forrester bloodline's unexpected blossom, a niece rather than a stepdaughter, free of the stigma that clung to Finn's unspoken past. For Steffi, the revelation was a revelation of opportunity to strengthen her family's claim on Forrester Creations, to redirect alliances in a world built on legacy and intrigue. In her mind's eye she saw Ridge and herself standing side by side, guardians of Forrester's future, while Finn, betrayed and isolated, faded into the background. But Luna, who had watched the adults around her spin a tapestry of half-truths and whispered doubts, felt the earth shift beneath her feet. She cornered Poppy in the salon where her mother's trademark scissors glinted under fluorescent lights. Poppy, ever the enigma behind dark shades and lacquered nails, hesitated only a moment before bracing herself. Luna's voice trembled as she asked the question that had haunted her since Brooke's confession. "How many people, Mom? How many men did you sleep with?" Poppy's face paled, those shades slipping down her nose to reveal eyes brimming with shame and defiance. "Luna, it wasn't about numbers," she began, voice shaking. "It was a life I led before I knew what I wanted, before you came along." But Luna would not be soothed. Each name Poppy uttered, each rendezvous she confessed, felt like a betrayal etched into Luna's very identity. She saw her mother not as the woman who had protected her through nightmares and heartbreak, but as a series of whispered liaisons and blurred memories that threatened to define Luna as a byproduct of scandal rather than love. The revelation cut deeper than any betrayal by a friend or lover. It severed the bridge between mother and daughter, leaving nothing but raw, bleeding regret. As the fallout of these intertwined confessions spread through Malibu like wildfire, the characters of the Logan, Forrester, and Spencer clans found themselves at a crossroads. Brooke, haunted by her role as bearer of terrible news, wrestled with guilt for the pain she'd inflicted on Finn even as she refused to retract her words. "Finn, devastated by the loss of his family as he knew it, threw himself into work, determined to build a life on truth, even if it meant doing so alone. Nick faded into the background of charity events and gallery openings, a ghost among the living, weighed down by the possibility of a daughter he could never claim. Steffi, emboldened by the clearing of Luna's paternity, maneuvered deftly to secure her family's fortunes, unaware that her victory might be as hollow as the smiles she gave at board meetings. And Luna, left to piece together an identity from fragments of lies and confessions, stood on the cusp of becoming a young woman defined not by her biology, but by the resilience she would need to forge her own truth. In the end, the collision of secrets and confessions left no one unscathed. The bonds of love, once thought unbreakable, lay scattered like shattered glass, each character forced to decide whether to gather the fragments or walk away. Brooke's courage in speaking her truth might yet lead to a new beginning for Finn, built on honesty rather than convenient ignorance. Or it might seal their fate as two wounded souls, too scarred to follow the quiet whisper of forgiveness. Nick's lost chance at redemption hung in the balance, a testament to the price of passion untempered by foresight. Steffi's triumph glowed with the same uncertainty as the phantom pulse of a legacy built on sand. And Luna, poor, brave Luna, stood in the ruins of her own history, her heart aching but alight with the promise that the future she would choose need not be dictated by her mother's past or her father's secrets. Only time would tell which of them would rise from the ashes and which would be consumed by the flames of their own making.